the reading the chart clockwise or counterclockwise.
Okay.
Like the way the planets move clockwise. But I've always I've picked up astrology when I was in my teens, and then I always read it counterclockwise.
Okay.
And so I wanted your perspective on
that. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is kind of let you know that the form of astrology that I work with is not really much of any of the other astrology that's existing on the internet. It's an old paradigm stuff. So a lot of the techniques is not something that I abide by. So I work with evolutionary astrology. And what they do is their system of interpreting the charts is when they look at planets, they're always looking at the planets moving anti-clockwise around the point. So let's say, for instance, Pluto's in the 10th house, yeah? Pluto will actually be, and then the constellations obviously there, then Pluto will be moving hold on, let me just do this. Actually, if you bear with me for a second, I'll actually put up a chart, and then that would make a lot easier to describe stuff. Let's have a look. Bear with me for a second while I just get something here. Okay. I've got to be careful because I can't actually use any person's charts that I have. Okay, let's see how this works. Documents, working template. Let's have a look. No, don't have one there. Okay, so it's obviously not on this computer. Okay. If you give me 1 second, I'm just going to put in my hard drive and then I'll be able to sort that out.
Nope. Absolutely.
Here we go. Right, I got that up. Screen share, and okay, can you see that chart? Like the wheel itself? So
yeah.
Okay. So basically, the planets themselves. So the constellation itself moves that way across. This is a rising sign, so everything moves that way. Yet the planets themselves move that way across. So I always look at the planets moving that way, anti-clockwise, and then the nodal axis, the nodes of the moon. Really, really important in evolutionary astrology because we're integrating the soul and obviously how the soul as a human being exists on Earth. So the nodal axis is incredibly important in understanding the karmic axis. So, but the nodal axis will move this way, clockwise around, unless obviously it's in a stationary and direct position, then it will move that way. Okay. Now, the reason why that would be the case, to me, I haven't actually completely discovered why. However, in terms of the nature of evolution itself, it's always working in an anti-clockwise position. So, for instance, like Pisces and the water trine correlates to how you evolve on an emotional level, because what's happening is that Pisces carries your inspiration. So when you want to do something in life, you kind of have this inspiration that then you link to the idea, the kind of Cancer archetype of the ego. And then when that ego is linked with that inspiration, you commit to it, Scorpio, that allows for the experience of that whole, whatever it is that you did. Say for instance, you want to decide to become a writer in your life and you were really inspired by a specific type of writers. That would be the Neptune experience, that committing to something, the essence of it. Whereas if it goes the other way around, it's more about an existential attachment to things. Whereas when it goes anti-clockwise, it's more internal. So I hope that kind of answers it in a way that makes sense.
Well, I'll go back to that as I'm going over my own chart, because I'm just trying to make. I when I picked it up when I was a teen, I was all about it, and I really felt a connection to it. And then I put it down for years, going through my own path.
Yeah.
And when I picked it up again, it was like the stuff that I had trouble with, I got it. And then I started finding like your channel.
Okay.
And that even more was just resonating me with what I wanted to do, how I wanted to help.
Okay.
People and how I read.
Yeah.
And so I was just so excited to find your channel and find everything that you've written and done. So I'm pretty still new to evolutionary astrology, probably just a couple months in.
Okay.
I just picked it up again in my life 6 months ago. So
yeah,
and it's like embracing just one of my best friends.
Yeah, completely.
It is.
I always like to, because whenever I like observe or interact within my own like time space experience and what astrology does for me, it always reminds me of the interconnectedness, and it's my roadmap. It's my spiritual soul's roadmap. And it's literally because when I look at us as human beings, I see us as an entire solar system. And the planetary archetypes and the configurations that they're making is that little solar system that exists within you, right? And you're incarnate into that sun experience, and that's what gives it. So it's like your blueprint. It's like your soul saying, hey, like, here we go. Here's how to understand your life in this way. And it kind of just reflects it back to you, kind of objectifies. And it is, you are right. It's like your best friend in that way. Right?
I explained to some people, it's like it holds, the universe holds all of history and all of our future. And it's just, it relates to us in so many ways. How do you not be scared sometimes when you look at charts because I feel like, okay, let's just throw Saturn out there. And I feel like it's, I want to embrace the best parts of it so that people can really take it in and not be scared of it. There's so many people, so many astrologers and so many groups have this very doomed feeling about Saturn or Pluto, and how do you embrace it?
Okay. Firstly, we have to go look at the human consciousness's programming to answer that question, because I feel like astrology in itself is not really anything without the life that we give it, which is why, of course, you also look at Saturn in a completely different light to somebody else and go, it's the same planet, but yet why we, you know what I'm trying to say? So what I do is, whenever I'm looking at the archetypes, I'm always embracing multidimensional self that it is that you are. And sometimes this can be quite expansive in terms of a lot of people's consciousness. So therefore, it's like you're literally trying to cram a lot of consciousness into somebody's, perspective that can't handle it. So that's where you get to discern whether or not this person's ready for that type of conversation. But you have to integrate the multidimensional self. And when we move past the third dimension and we're into ourselves, there's total love. And everything is already manifested for us. This is our journey. And so every archetype in itself is always stemming from what is the best interest for you relative to your journey. And when I connect to that space, I always see then the archetypes as this beautiful expression of your journey. And I communicate it like that with people. I get them to really embody the fact that this is an awesome experience and that they should love it, because it is a path of transmutation and it's a path of transformation. And I think a lot of people resonate with just feeling a lot more comfortable with realizing that, yes, in a large majority of our lives, we have been programmed that pain sucks. And so therefore we need to reject it. But that's the exact programming in that little thing that causes the pain to be experienced that way. The moment that you welcome pain into your life, or a situation into your life that says, hey, by the way, here's the transmutation, it like loses its ability. Like it actually goes, but I wasn't programmed to cause harm. I was programmed to cause harm, not transmutation. So I think when you approach it, you've got to really sort of like give the impression, not the impression, give the truth that this is an awesome journey that your soul is about to embark on. And here are the positive ways that you can actually come out of that experience. And if you focus your energy on that, people really resonate with that experience, and they go, okay, I've got this. You develop this sense of courage in that sense. So you kind of like take the darkness and you transmute it into light.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you actually get the effect of talking about Pluto transit, because it is Pluto transits in itself. You know, you got to be honest with them and say, okay, look, there are emotional attachments you have to things, and Pluto's going to come up and is going to say to you, let's change this. Let's evolve. Let's move this away. And the less you resist, the more you'll notice that you don't actually experience the Pluto transit at all. Because that's where Pluto transits have their pain, is because we want to hold on to stuff. You see what I mean? And then another aspect of that as well is that when you look at the water trine itself, it actually teaches you how to deal with the Pluto transit, because each and every single one of us feels that security exists in existential experiences. So when Pluto comes along and changes that reality, we're going, oh my God, our life's like dissolving, because people are looking outwardly and watching that reality literally shift. Mm-hmm. Whereas internally, what's actually happening is this beautiful mutation. And they've got to honor that space within themselves. So those existential security attachments that they have is what really causes Pluto to make things difficult. You know? Then the second thing with Saturn, approach it this way. I don't know if you've read the Saturn article that I wrote with regards to understanding Saturn return, cycles of maturation.
Yeah.
The way that I explain it to people is like this. Saturn, Capricorn, 10th house is first instinctual change. It's the cardinal sign. So it's instinctual change, which means that when we get to that point, Saturn will put blocks in our way. And I literally show people like this. It puts a block in your way. And we are so programmed to consistently just be one-track minded that when Saturn blocks come in our way, we never actually understand that this is an opportunity to shift our perspective. Because that's all that's happening. The block doesn't disappear. You're just shifting your perspective relative to the forced change that is manifested from Saturn saying, this road that you're on is no longer supporting you anymore. It's no longer supporting your evolution. So look at it as an opportunity to actually shift your perspective and make a change in your life that's actually going to give you massive abundance. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And that's a really, you see how that process of explaining it really gets people to understand that this is an opportunity for amazingness to manifest in their lives, and not something that they're holding on to that doesn't support their evolution anymore. And it kind of makes that a little bit better. Now, Saturn in itself is not actually hard work at all. That's another thing that's really I'm angry about with old astrology. But at the same time, it supported its road, so it's okay. I shouldn't really be angry with it. But Saturn actually correlates to the process of deep reflection, because its polarity point is Cancer. It's a shell. So what happens is when we're forced to block, we get that opportunity to deeply reflect. And when we reflect, we get an opportunity to develop hindsight, which allows us then to actually make new choices under old circumstances that causes the shift. So Saturn really is a block that's in place that when you get up and you say, okay, look, what's my challenge? You approach it in that way with that divine love experience, that acceptance. Then instantaneously Saturn's like, oh, okay, so what would you like to grow in your life? What would you like to have just multiply? Oh, I would like that. I would like that. Okay, that's not a problem. It's not about like duty and responsibility and so on and so forth. In a sense that is, but it's not really. It's really about discipline. And it's not about control, and it's not about like having to do something every single day because this is the mundane experience of it. No, it's about taking something that you truly love, 5th house in conjunct 10th house, i.e. Leo in conjunct Capricorn, right? The in conjunct shows you that the heart chakra is what actually allows you to find yourself in society. That's what that in conjunct talks about. When you align your heart with that space, then all of a sudden you start to notice that what it is that Saturn's asking you to do is really just experience time unfold. Do you see where I'm going with this experience of how the magnitude of Saturn actually gets unfolded when we see it in this way?
Yes, it brings me actually a lot of peace, because I feel like that's, that feels true to me, and it's, and I appreciate that, because then I can understand it better when I hear it, and so I appreciate that, and I can approach that, and
it's actually liberation that Saturn brings. In that sense, we've just been programmed to reject pain, which is why when we look at something like Saturn that says, "Come on, buddy, let's do something every single day, discipline that allows you to follow your heart, that you can actually have growth from." And when you look at it from that perspective, all of a sudden Saturn's going like, "Hey, kiddo, let's be more awesome than what you've been." But it's heavy. Don't get me wrong. Like, the Saturn archetype is heavy because the purpose is to draw you down into the Cancerian archetype of reflection. That's why Saturn correlates to depression. Because when you're blocked and you don't have any energy to move and action something, what intrinsically happens is that we develop futility, right? Why should I do this? This is the shadow of Saturn and Capricorn, obviously. Because we're consistently having little blocks put in our way where Saturn's saying, jump. Okay, let's try this a little bit better. Let's jump. Okay, let's jump. And then all of a sudden, after like a month's worth of jumping consistently, you started to notice that the way that you've actually been jumping is just beginning higher and higher and higher and higher. And then Saturn goes, do you see how awesome you are? Do you see how brilliant you've just jumped? Like how many times, how high you've gone when you started here, and now all of a sudden you're like jumping that high, right? But if you get knocked down, then Saturn says, okay, let's get up and let's try it again. But we can get so broken down from the connection of wanting things to be so idealistic. And if you notice in the zodiac, Pisces actually makes a sextile to Capricorn in the zodiac, and that's what happens. Saturn, the truth, reality; Pisces, dreams and illusions. So we have this experience where we sit and we go, I would like it to be like this. And Saturn goes, okay, well, you can have it. You just need to build it. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I do. I'm a Pisces myself, so I really do get that.
Me too.
Yeah.
2 Pisces on today? Wow.
I understand.
And that's interesting because Mercury is moving through Pisces at the moment. So we've got a lot of Pisces connectivity over here.
Actually, I said before, I'm not an astrologer, but I understand what are you talking about. Very, very good. Because I'm interested with new age knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It is so together, so beautiful, and you are explaining very beautifully and easy to understand. Even I don't know anything about astrology, but I am interested with numerology.
Right.
I don't know they are same or not, but birthdays are very interesting to me.
You know, like okay, it's just the downloads come through straight away, and it's just like, okay, this is what you say. It's numerology and astrology, especially evolutionary astrology. In fact, before I go and answer that or talk about that, I'd like to back it up a little bit and just share some of my own perspectives on why I feel, or how I observe and interact with the language of astrology, and what gives that ability to make it so crystal clear. And that is that when I'm looking at the archetypes themselves, i.e. planetary archetypes, houses, systems, etc., we're looking at life. You know what I'm trying to say? We're looking at the interconnectedness that we have with nature and nature has with us. There is no separateness. And so what we're actually looking at is how the universe is through Mother Nature, feminine energy, Gaia, however you want to define it as, is reflecting to you archetypes that exist within yourself. So she becomes your teacher, which is one of the reasons as to why you'll hear a lot about like the reconnection of feminine energy, or the balance of masculine, and so on and so forth, all that type of stuff. That's the kind of paradigm that you're looking into, in terms of when you incarnated onto Earth, you've come here to experience feminine consciousness. But it's not about feminist movements and any of that. It's talking about the nature of nurture and receptivity. You understand this point I'm trying to make? So, and that's what's actually manifesting on Earth right now, this balance that's taking place. So when you look at like nature, for instance, you see the archetypes manifesting there. And so all you're doing is you're just looking at how they interact with each other. And when you look at a birth chart, you do the same. So when you look at, like, say, for instance, Neptune in 10th house, Neptune, again, is the experience of dissolving. It literally dissolves pre-existing realities that allows for a new direction to manifest. And when it's existing in 10th house, i.e. Capricorn, Capricorn is crystallization, which is why the fabric of our time-space through the 3D is Capricorn energy. But when you put those two together, what do you think you will experience? What does nature show you when you put Neptune and Capricorn together? You actually get a river because it's flowing. Yeah. You see how that's working? So when you understand it as nature showing you how the ecosystem's working, then you could actually see that really you're not using any astrological terminology other than that specific language in that way. You're actually intuiting and really capturing the essence of that vibration from nature and then communicating it in a 3D way, in a linear way, using evolutionary astrology in that particular instance. Does that make sense? So like,
yes, definitely.
So like numerology, for instance, in my opinion, correlates to the same as evolutionary astrology. The only difference or diversity, Aquarius, diversity, Earth, air trine, is that we are looking at a spectrum of light. We're observing and allowing self-realization to manifest just through a different lens. So numerology will work through this way and astrology will work through that way, but essentially they're getting to the same point of trying to understand oneself in a more deeper way. And I'll show you guys over here again with regards to this piece. If you ever want to understand life, study this intensely, this chart, this wheel. Understand the aspects and angles that they make to each other, etc., and you'll have all the answers. You wouldn't need to actually sit there and try to figure out things in life, because this is the blueprint of it, at least from an astrological perspective. So here, Pisces, and you have Gemini, okay? And in the natural zodiac, there's a square that's taking place between the 3rd house and the 12th house, Pisces and Gemini. And so Gemini, as its essence, actually correlates to how we as human beings give names to things in a left brain way. So my name is Simon, this is Raising Vibrations, your name is Rose, and so on and so forth. These are names that we have given to ourselves so that we can interact with each other. But the essence of what it is that we are is not really our name. It's more than that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when we're explaining something, like for instance, if I want to describe to you a desk and I stop using the word desk, then I actually lack the ability to describe what's existing over there, because nobody will be able to interact with that. And even if I started to use other words to try and describe the desk, I would lose the essence of that vibration, that energy, whatever it is. So words we give to things to describe the phenomena of reality. And that square is actually one of the reasons as to why we are unable to use words to describe metaphysical concepts or be able to experience or describe things to other people that we've experienced within ourselves in a way that's tangible. Because it's like literally we're divorcing ourselves from the essence of something the moment that we give it a name that has got a definition that's man-made. Are we together here?
Yes. I'm processing it because I do feel I feel it.
So just that little, small piece of information over there that's the square. That square, I mean, obviously there's a lot more in terms of the fact that the 3rd house and the 10th house makes that 150 degree crisis angle, quincunx, etc. And so our definitions are linked with time, which is why when we speak, we're always having to put things in past, present, or future tense. It's our words are linked with time. Capricorn, motion. Capricorn is motion. In the most highest vibration, Capricorn is motion. Okay? So before you started this experience, you were doing something. You experienced this reality, and then you shifted off, and then you ended this experience and you did something else. And the way that you know that time has evolved is by the motion of 3 realities that you've just shifted through. And the only way you can experience that through the linear mind is in a past-present way. But Pisces tells that everything is manifesting at the same time. There is no sense of linearity once you move past the 4th and 5th dimension of reality.
There is no time.
Well, yeah, time in itself does still exist, because the idea of time saying that there isn't is meaning that the 3rd dimension is not actually operating in this construct. It does. It's just that when you move higher into the higher dimensions of reality and so on and so forth, you become less dense, there's less motion, and so on and so forth. The fabric is less condensed. So everything starts to oscillate at a lot faster rate. And that's a very, very big conversation to have. I bet many of you guys stopped this conversation and went, oh, let's just join this over here. And they're going to walk away going, oh my God, I need to rest. Yep. So, inner workings. Cool. So did you have any more? I bet you got loads and loads of questions, but I probably shattered the brain. So
it's processing. I'll watch this back and then. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just going to see if everybody else has got the link. I know. Where are you at the moment, Rose? Like in the world, in America, or?
I'm in Canada, near Toronto.
Okay, so the time zone's pretty early there for you at the moment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's about 9:30, yeah.
Right. Okay, so let's just see on the Facebook thing over here. Let's have a look. So how long have you been working with evolution astrology? You say that you've sort of played around with it a little bit?
Well, when I did it when I was a teenager, it was very, I had all my books around me, and I did just readings for people, and I've always been very intuitive.
Okay.
And so, and then I always had my books. If my books were put away or on the shelf, I didn't touch them for years.
Okay.
And then when I picked everything up, it was like I had the software I needed. I had everything that I needed, and so I looked at my chart again, and I just started really feeling the meanings.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to figure out a way that I could put it into words. And I started looking around, and that's when I found your site. And when I do readings for other people, they're just very more intuitive, and I'm jumping into that. I want to do more readings. I want more of that because I love that connection, and I love being able to give people something positive about their life, because I do feel like people, I don't know if yes, we're programmed to reject pain, but I don't even think we know how to deal with it. And it's not even rejection, it's just absolute block from it, because it was never dealt with in the first place.
No. Completely. In fact, that's one thing that I'm definitely going to be moving into as Raising Vibrations unfolds. I'm starting to notice that my higher self is sort of pushing me in that direction of really, really being aware of how that disconnect from the source energy has allowed people to not even know how to deal with that pain. A lot of it is about rewriting the way that we approach it, a lot of self-acceptance.
Yes.
In that sense. And again, I think if to me, as far as I'm so far aware of the process itself, a lot of it's got to do with the recalibration and the reattunement and realignment and refocus of how we understand the ego.
Yes.
In that space, because it's the ego that carries the experiences, and in that sense. Now, I did a video recently as well. I think it was maybe even called The Shift, where I was explaining a little bit about how we, as human beings, come onto Earth to deal with a lot of our karma. And what happens is that we have created this ego structure that then glorifies existential happiness. And so what happens is that whenever we are observing around us, and I'm not saying that this is like you don't know this type of stuff, okay? So I'm just sharing it for everyone in that sense, but sharing my own thoughts. And that is that we consistently go for that experience outside of ourselves. We're seeking to experience love outside of ourselves. We're looking for it consistently there. And because the experience of love like becomes available and then dissolves through a purchasing of a new iMac, for instance, or, you know, chasing something over here, it dissolves so instantly. So we consistently keep on going for that experience. And we find ourselves just chasing that consistently and not actually dealing with the real experience of what it means to have love within thyself, into the self. And so we validate those experiences outside of ourselves, and then what happens is we disconnect from the heart and that space, and we chase it. Now, if we had to, so then what I wanted to say is that we then also attach our sense of like happiness, our sense of what's the word I'm looking for at this moment in time, man? Come on, when accomplishments, that stuff, with that existential void love experience. And so when that gets taken away, i.e. from a Pluto transit or from a Saturn transit or from a Uranus transit, like we instantaneously see that being killed. Well, like we notice that disappears and we go, oh my God, my life's dying. It's ending. And it's like, no, the ego structure that you've used to understand the nature of your life is ending, but a new one is going to be manifesting for yourself at that point in time. So we never actually, we look at the pain, we reject it, and we're always told to consistently think that if the things outside of ourselves define us, then, you know, if that outside existential appearance of us is in a way, shape, or form ugly, then we are ugly. So we identify with that ugliness outside of ourselves, that holographic sort of imprint that we projected there, and then society has its rules and regulations, and it's all manipulated. Whereas when we look inside and we actually understand the essence of what it is that we are, number one, we're actually spiritual beings experiencing humanity, God mind, okay? When we flip the switch like that, then all of a sudden we start to see ourselves as everything that comes into your field, everything that comes into your life is an opportunity to take the bow and arrow of love and shoot at it and go, I love the fact that this situation came into my life. Yeah, fair enough, there are extremes. So I'm not propagating the idea of like a friend dying and going, oh, this was fantastic, I love this experience. No. You know, but it is absolutely an opportunity to consistently put more love into the experience through self-acceptance. That, hey, I'm actually okay, I'm complete, I never actually was in any way whatsoever disempowered through that experience. It's an illusion. So when we kind of like assimilate that and grasp that concept completely, and we live by that experience, you'll notice that whenever situations come up that need clearing within your field, you'll start to notice that, number one, it's not actually yours. It's part of the collective programming that's caused that pain, because the soul doesn't incarnate into this experience to go, oh, look, I'm going to subject myself to horrific things and then tell myself that it is me. The soul never commits suicide and then it's on life review goes, what an idiot. Why did you do that? It goes, do you understand how brave you are to have actually put yourself in that space to begin with? To see where we're looking at the love vibration, the acceptance of ourselves, that's step one. The acceptance that the beauty within us is already there and it never goes away. We just got to refocus that ego and identify ourselves as the beautiful experience, and then we accept ourselves, and we don't need outside validation. We don't need another person to validate us. When you do that, I promise you right now, you watch this inner child of yours kickstart like absolute joy and excitement, because then it's going to you and going, so you're going to honor me instead of some other person that's on their own journey that has a different like construct, etc., etc. You're going to validate me. You're going to make me the person that's more important. Yeah, this kicks ass. Like, let's do this. You know what I mean? Try that approach when you're speaking to people in that sense. Rewire the sort of archetypes from a space of this is giving you growth. This is giving you abundance. And you'll maybe see that they'll probably be more open to the experience because everybody is seeking that love.
I also talk a lot about expectations being placed on other people, because everybody's on their own path, and if we expect more out of other people, it's always going to be a letdown, because it's never going to measure up to what is already available to us.
Yeah.
So I do talk a lot about that as well, because I think I do that. I talk a lot with parents going through post-traumatic stress disorder, and how that affects their raising their children.
Yeah.
And just, I think I'm kind of the opinion that everybody is walking around with some form of PTSD from.
Absolutely.
Because you can't measure what a trauma in any form does to your wiring. You just can't. And so I think that really skews expectations and how we look for the other person or people to fix us, and within the family, and all the karma that's just concentrated in a family.
Yeah.
It makes it and I have so much empathy for the path. It's a path that I walk as well. So it's that's what I concentrate on as well.
Yeah. That's beautiful, and it's awesome to be able to have many other souls out there that are using the form of astrology and numerology to help people become more awakened to aspects of themselves that have been disintegrated through. And the funny thing about this is that when you start to encompass the totality of what is actually manifesting on Earth, especially as the soul's journey, you'll notice that, like, recently over the last 2,000 years, and especially the Pisces age and that's culmination, and also the intervention of patriarchy, i.e. that we have this existential, you'll notice that an emphasized Virgo Pisces axis in a soul's chart will show you this aspect of like an inner void that exists within them, because they've never been told to know that God exists within inside, or nature or love or whatever it is that you want to define it as exists. There's an existential acceptance that God is there and we are of service to him. So we're human beings trying to be spiritual. And that straight away then kicks in the subconscious programming of your authority needs to be given to other people in that sense, and that you're completely disempowered. Because then you don't even realize that you actually can take care of your body in a way that is completely in that sense. You just allow your intuition to say, okay, there's an aspect of me that's not working in this space. How can I deal with it? You can actually heal yourself in that sense. So with this Pisces age and this whole Virgo Pisces axis, when you look at it in charts, you'll see that this person will be very, very attuned to lifetimes lived in that age, that they'll be bringing through into their consciousness of rejection, of self-worth that is below the belt, and that they suck, and that they don't have anything to offer, and they will judge them and criticize them and be completely and utterly vindictive, to the point where they'll actually create situations in life that will cause trauma, that then will create the situation for love to come from that experience, i.e. I need to deserve pain before I can experience love, or you need to sacrifice your sins and before you get to heaven. See how that type of programming is existing. And that's what the Virgo Pisces axis actually holds for many souls in their birth charts. When you're looking at it just on the 2,000 years, I mean, going back more sort of like maybe 6,000 or 7,000 years, a lot of those people will also be drawing lifetimes where they're natural shamans, because Virgo correlates to healing. Do you see how this chart becomes so multidimensional when you start to integrate these galactic cycles? And then the last thing that I wanted to say to you was the Uranus archetype, 11th house, and Aquarius. That's your trauma signature in the chart. And whenever Uranus is making sort of square to a planet, whenever Uranus is making an opposition, when there's a conjunction, and so on and so forth, the 150-degree angle aspect, you'll notice when it's Uranus, or if there's lots of planets in the 11th house, or moons in Aquarius, and then planets being made an aspect to that, the reason why it will correlate to a trauma signature, again, is because on one deep level, over the last 2,000 years, any individuality, Aquarius, has been completely suppressed. So a lot of lifetimes where people have got strong Aquarius signatures within themselves have multidimensional lives existing on different Earth timelines that they're experiencing right now, because you realize that, right? A lot of your lives are also being lived simultaneously there. That's what you pick up on. So they'll be living those lives where they'll remember that trauma of being burnt at a stake or being kicked out of a group, especially 11th house Plutos. Plutos have got 11th house. Oh my gosh. Lots of feelings of being rejected from the group, not being good enough. Can I express my authenticity in this experience? And will something come back to me that will tell me that I'm not allowed to be this way? And then even dealing with some of the karmic debris and energetic imprints that are associated with those situations. And then that post-traumatic stress coming through as well. I mean, I in my own chart, I've got a huge trauma signature with regards to Mars and Venus and Aquarius. I mean, I have 4 planets in the 11th house, and Uranus is making a beautiful little aspect to Mars and Venus in a square on my nodal axis. It's like, and then I discovered evolutionary astrology, and I started to notice this trend within myself. Now, Aquarius correlates to the detachment process. Okay. So what happens is that we're in the physical, Capricorn, we have a trauma experience, Uranus detaches us from it, and then we jump into the Pisces archetype of healing itself, i.e. creating an alternate reality where we numb the pain. But we've never actually been taught in our spiritual evolution to be able to integrate that back into the physical, i.e. go from Pisces back into Capricorn. So we left with all of this debris of frozen trauma in our consciousness. And so whenever we experience situations that bring up any of those situations, then what happens is the consciousness hits a block and it freezes. And that's the post-traumatic stress disorder. That's the experience. I don't know how to handle this experience. I haven't worked through it. I haven't melted it. Polarity point of Aquarius, Leo, Sun. See how that's working? So when you're talking to a lot of people that have got Aquarius, strong Aquarius archetypes within their chart, notice that the Sun is the point of healing, the reintegration, to speak about it, to accept it, to allow that experience to manifest for you, so that Sun dissolves the ice block. That's why therapy in that sense helps in that way. But the potential that evolutionary astrology holds is profound, because you're looking straight at a person's soul and their lives that they've manifested themselves. And when you approach it from that perspective in a very loving and spaceful way and soft and acceptance way, you can heal so much of it.
I agree.
Just a quick question. Did you work with Jeffrey Wolf Green? Or
I've watched a lot of his videos. Okay. I have, but yeah, that's all I've done is I've watched videos.
So it's not, you haven't worked with Stephen Forrest or any of those type. Okay, all right. No. The only reason why I'm saying that is because I know that. I mean, Stephen Forrest is awesome in his work in that sense, and he's definitely pioneered EA with us. But Jeffrey talks a lot about the Careerists archetype. I highly recommend a person by the name of Mark Jones. He actually works a lot with the Aquarius archetype. And in fact, he's got some YouTube videos on YouTube that go through Uranus through the houses. And he gives some insights into how that operates and how those past lives are being captured in this lifetime and how to even heal through some of them. So I'll put that in like an email. I don't know, when I put it on YouTube or something. I'll get you guys that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely wonderful. Worth watching. Absolutely.
How is there an indication in the degrees of any of the planets or any specific planets that, if I don't have an in-depth conversation with someone before I do a chart for them, mm-hmm. and I'm always wondering how, I mean, I always want to raise their consciousness, mm-hmm. so I don't dumb my speech down. I don't do anything like that, but I try to walk a fine line between or what I say, that it's not over their head, they can grab onto it. They can mm-hmm. grab onto it to feel it. Is there a degree do the degrees of the planets, do they indicate anything of their consciousness or their evolutionary path?
Okay, so I feel like the best way that I can answer this question is I'm not entirely sure. Okay, if the chart itself holds that amount of information in that sense, but what I do notice is that what I do notice is that whenever a planet is in particular, it's like, so for instance with planets, because they're moving anti-clockwise, if it's at 29 degrees, okay, so for instance I've got Pluto and Mercury 29 degrees, they're at the top of the chart, okay. On one hand, if you look at everything through cycles, that represents a culmination of that archetype. And so the soul is actually not having any training wheels on it, and it's kind of mastering that experience. Okay. A part of that degree in itself also contains like loads and loads and loads and loads of past lifetimes that are all being now compressed into one, and it's a mastery process. It's like it's trying to integrate the totality of these experiences. But I also feel that from the point of view of the human being interacting with that 29-degree planet, for instance, it takes them quite a long period of time to completely and utterly embody the consciousness that is really being held in that 29-degree archetype. In other words, that at somebody at the edge of, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, because I'm really interested in this actually, in terms of what I've seen from direct experiences, is that you have to go through a plethora of experiences correlating to past lives, that then over a period of time starts to reveal to the soul this archetype, the mastery of this. It's a very intense experience because it's like jamming everything in one. All these, it's like literally taking all the experiences, like you're writing a grade 12 math exam, for instance. You're integrating all of what you've learned throughout the whole year or your whole life in that sense. Whereas when a planet is at, say, for instance, between 0 and 10 degrees, what I've noticed is that, karmically speaking as well, because it's involution, okay, the first 10 degrees of any sign correlate to involution, i.e. the breaking down of pre-existing patterns that then leads to new awarenesses, that then leads to integration. New awarenesses 10 to 20, integration 20 to 30, evolution, yeah? So in the first 10 degrees, a lot of the planetary archetypes are very new. And so in this person's field of experiences, there wouldn't be energies around that would replicate intense experiences or high vibrational experiences or a lot of knowledge. It would be very sort of dumbed down in that experience. So what I actually see is that it varies from planet to planet, and how they will be interacting with that. And you see how that's working? And the reason why I approach it that way is because, to me, I honor the fact that all planets re-archetypes within themselves have got the solar system in themselves. They've got lifetimes they've experienced within themselves. So it's like interacting the multidimensional self, not just it's one size fits all, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I know it's really complex, but it makes sense in its simplest form, right?
Right.
So that's a layer. So when I speak to somebody, say, for instance, has got a 29-degree archetype, I know that I'm not going to be like, oh, this is fresh and new. I'm saying, you're mastering this experience. And I've had a lot of feedback from people that I haven't spoken to where they've said to me, yeah, that was correct. So it does work like that in that sense. When somebody's got planets between, I'm sorry, I'm going on forever over here, but from 10 to maybe 20, I noticed that there's a lot of like gathering of information. There's a lot of like newness that the soul is trying to fix. It's like a Gemini archetype. They're really, really wanting to absorb new stuff in that sense. Because why? Because something has just recently broken down that has created space for evolution to work. And so there's a natural process of wanting to learn new things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you kind of like attune your sense of sort of awareness to them in that way. And then when it comes to the kind of like conversation itself, And this is something that I've had to learn within my own soul, because I've got that like opposition in my chart of Neptune and the moon in 5th house, 11th house. It's like bringing stuff into the physical in a way that's very tangible to people. So evolutionary astrology has actually taught me that, is that if I haven't spoken to them, I kind of, you can't really go in depth, obviously, but you can give a very broad perspective of the possibilities that could be experiencing. And then what happens is that is that people will resonate with an aspect that you have mentioned, and everything else that is not applicable to them, they won't pick up. The energetic field won't pick up. And so all your job to do is just to really communicate a wide variety of possible outcomes or possible experiences, and then whatever flashes for them works. And so therefore you don't really give predictions, but you give planetary archetypes definitions in that sense. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. It's when I do charts and they'll say, okay, well, what about the future? And I say, well, I don't do predictive anything. You know, I have cards. I don't do predictive anything because there's so much power in the present moment.
Yeah.
And anything that can be predicted can be changed or manipulated, or it can, or you can assign yourself to that.
That's right.
And so, I get that. So.
Another thing that I can highly encourage you to do when communicating with clients is learn to be able to tell stories. Because then what happens is that you're naturally stimulating the left and right brain, which then connects it to the higher mind, which is Uranus. So the left brain being Gemini, right brain being Sagittarius, and then that connects to Uranus. And so they plug into epiphanies or awarenesses that instantaneously come into their consciousness, because there's a creative aspect and then there's the linear aspect being manifested. So stories to explain archetypal themes are very empowering. Like people get it. They go, okay, yeah. So is that what you mean? Yes.
Yeah. Got
it. Mm-hmm.
Has every planet has a number?
You know what? I'm not entirely sure. I suspect that somebody could possibly answer that in the comments if that's the case. Intuitively, I feel that is possible. Yes, that is the case. But I don't know any of that information. But I am looking into it. I'm starting to merge a little bit of numerology into the astrology, but I'm doing it very slowly. But I think there is, absolutely, yeah. Maybe even Rose could answer that question, if you know.
I'm sorry. What was? I was following the conversation. I didn't hear the question.
It was along the lines of, does the planets have numbers in terms of the association with numerology?
I don't believe so. When I've applied numerology, I've always looked. I look at the significance of what I know of the numbers anytime I see them. Like if there's like 11s and 22, like the spiritual numbers, and then how the other numbers just correlate down to experience. Right. Yeah. But I haven't seen any, I haven't read anything of direct correlation of numbers in the planet.
Okay. But yeah, I think maybe if somebody watches this video, check the comments. They might be able to answer that question in another way. But I think that's pretty, that's pretty decent answer.
What are your thoughts on the blood moon coming up?
Oh my gosh. It's huge. It's huge. I mean, there are so many layers to this experience that I would love to share. But there's the solar equinox or the solar eclipse, and then the equinox, and then also that's full moon or new moon in Pisces. I don't know why I keep on saying in full moon, but anyway, new moon, and then up to the actual blood moon itself. There is a huge energetic gateway that is open at this point in time. If you follow the actual, I'm assuming there's a part of yourself that also follows a little bit of Gaia's movement, like how she's transcending from third dimension to fifth dimension and all that type of stuff. Well, this is a period of time where a lot of the fifth dimensional consciousness or unity consciousness is being flooded through. And there's a lot of DNA activation that's been manifesting at this stage, shifting away from carbon-based to crystalline DNA and such like that. And these portals are being opened at this point in time through those planetary alignments that are literally allowing every single person that's literally tapping into themselves to have these cathartic Pluto-Uranus awakenings. Because that's what it's really operating on. It's supporting the Pluto-Uranus square that took place, where there was this complete shattering of pre-existing definitions and ideas and so on and so forth. And that energy is just pouring in. So from now up until that period of time, spend a lot of time in nature, or at least try to cut off a lot of distractions and listen to the voice that's existing within you, or anything that you're feeling, because you're going to have boatloads of epiphanies and insights and understandings that are just going to flow through. I mean, for me, I literally, over the last 2 weeks, I mean, it's actually gone. It's gone now, but the last 3 days have been intense, man. I've had like the most intense like neck pains, and also the back of my skull over here has just been throbbing, because I've had to actually just be completely and utterly, with this energy that's just consistently pouring in through my crown chakra into myself. And my mind's being blown consistently. I can't wait to write the next articles. There's a huge article that's coming out at this point in time, and a video that's going to encompass some of these sort of downloads that I've experienced. A lot of them's got to do with how to integrate ourselves now going forward into 2015, and especially using the planetary archetypes. So massive, in my opinion, huge. And wherever it's landing on your chart, pay attention. Big stuff.
It was probably a couple months ago when I had a dream of a blood moon, and I didn't even know it was coming up until like about a month ago. And so I've been trying to tap into that to see what it was.
In 2000, what it actually correlates to on one level, as far as I'm aware of the experiences and such, and what information's being presented to me, is that it's a combination of 2012's Pluto-Uranus first squares and Saturn moving into Scorpio. So Saturn moves into Scorpio, and we get this deep Scorpionic confrontation of all of our personal attachments of Earth timelines that we've experienced that no longer support our true authentic self. I
could write my own book on my Saturn and Scorpio time. It was intense. It was intense.
Yep. Yeah, it definitely was. and a part of that experience as well is that a lot of the sort of cleansing and clearing process that was manifesting itself through the last 2.5 years has now come to a point where you're feeling a lot lighter. You've got a lot of these attachments off yourself and so on and so forth. And the final Uranus-Pluto square, including the blood moon that's coming up right now, is that activation point of shifting your consciousness from just this 3D earthenal plane to something that is embodying maybe in 9th dimensional consciousness with this Christ. But that vibration is incredibly high at the moment. And you probably only experience it sometimes within yourself, where you experience these intuitive understandings that don't even actually belong on Earth at this moment in time. So that's even got to do with that experience, is like shifting our awareness to actually accompany that stuff to come through into ourselves, and for us to expand that consciousness. And then in September sometime, I believe the 27th or 28th, there's going to be another one of these. It's a closing off. Is it another blood moon? I'm sure about it. Yeah, there's another blood moon in September. And that will be the complete and utter integration point of the last 3 years.
And right after Saturn moves back into Sagittarius.
And that's why that's going at 29 degrees Scorpio, 28 degrees Scorpio, because what are we doing? We're mastering it. Hold on.
How we can use this energy?
How you can use the energy?
How we can integrate with this energy, the blood moon energy.
Well, what I would say to you at this point in time is the best way for me, how I see how you approach it and how I've been understood and explained how to approach it, is that this is a time of being receptive. This is a time of allowing yourself to become more. Here's the best way. When you go to a shop and you buy a new pair of shoes, think of the new pair of shoes as the new energy that is being anchored into the fifth dimensional consciousness of Earth. Okay? And your job right now is to put yourself in those shoes and to start feeling what it feels like to have this new high vibrational stuff as your life, as this freedom, as this serenity, as this calmness. There's no more of the linear logical mind consistently just dragging you into places of fear. You're opening up more of your heart-centered chakra and your heart-centered self and saying, hey, by the way, I'm no longer alone. I've actually got the whole world around me. This is the type of consciousness that you're embodying, that Earth is one in that sense, and you are a beautiful expression of a choice that you made to move in a direction. That's reflecting back to us what that looks like when you make that choice. So this is a time to start really, really getting into this space over here, your heart, and starting to actually center all of your choices, all of your decisions, all of your feelings about that in that space consistently, so that you start to dissolve all of these feelings of fear or entrapment and so on and so forth. And you feel more alive with stuff. You feel the reality around you. You start to embody more of what it is that you are, your hyperdimensional self, which is that you're an energetic being. So you start to navigate your way there, because as we move into Saturn, into Sagittarius intuition, Saturn square Neptune, you're going to start to notice that all of your choices and all of your life experiences are going to be completely guided by your higher self. So your journey now is to learn how to actually be really strong with your intuition and to know, okay, I'm being pulled in this direction. I need to go here. I'm being moved into that direction. I feel like I need to do this. That becomes your new language. So this is a time right now of just like really, really accepting a lot of the stuff that's coming through, a lot of the downloads, a lot of the information. You're readjusting your energy frequency and so on and so forth, and just breathe. And then every single moment that you can, just breathe out the love vibration. If you see something over there and you feel the heart energy to another human being, try to do something. Like just smile at them and say, hey, hope you have a good day. And you anchor that stuff into the fifth dimension, into Earth at this point in time, because that's where the real transition is going to take place, not in the outside world, but from the inside out. It's very important to understand that process. And you're empowering yourself at the same time by realizing that you are the creator of it. Yes. That's the most beautiful experience. Your life is here to be unfolded. So
yes, this is beautiful. Oh my God. Wonderful. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And then just be with that space, and you'll see the serenity and you'll see the calmness. And whenever things start to come crazy, because trust me, I have 2 little kids over here at this little point in time, and it can go from complete and utter harmony to maelstrom, just madness. And you just have to breathe, stay centered, stay on Earth, allow your toroidal field, which is the energy center that's moving around you at this point in time, to not get warped, to stay within your centered self. Try to every single morning, try to at least do some meditation. And it doesn't need to be this old new age stuff where it's like, oh, it's just about like being centered and saying, okay, this is who I am. Okay.
You said some pain. You are feeling some pain, and I am feeling same thing too. And whole body is vibrating. This is so normal, and I should open this.
Yes.
Not the fear of.
No ways.
Okay. You have to think about it also, because the majority of people will be resisting these changes, and it's going to lead to more suppression. It's going to lead to more anger and more fear, and that's going to all blow up before everything calms down. So the people that have this awareness and this consciousness that can bring it, that can spread it out, not bring it down, but spread it out in any way that you can. And that really, and it starts with yourself, because if you can't be centered in yourself, then you can't help anybody else really find that.
No, that's such a, I love the way that you express that, in the sense that, yes, you are bringing it down in that way, but you're also now expanding it outwardly.
Yes.
Because you're taking it from the fifth dimension into the third, and when we see things in that linear way, yeah, that's true. Super cool. Super cool. Okay, guys, do you have one more question that you want to ask just before we kind of end this conversation, or are we okay? We feel...
I think I'm good.
Yeah.
This is a great conversation.
Yes.
Awesome. Well,
thank you very much.
You're absolutely welcome, and thank you very much for participating in this experience as well, for it to actually unfold.
It was a pleasure.
Okay. Have a fantastic day, guys. Take care, eh?
You too. Thank
Bye.
you.